All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Soulganize Your Life podcast. Yes, you heard that right. Soulganize, because we are trying to help everyone discern the difference between the regular daily organizing your life from your psychological distorted ego and soulganizing our lives from a divinely inspired power, which you may not even be aware of. Our souls have nothing but love for us. And our ego will always tell us that we're not enough, right? Our soul knows that happiness is going to come from an inner confidence that we build that has nothing to do with what the ego recognizes, which is possessions and achievements. Our soul is going to always create opportunities for us to learn, and our ego will just be convincing us the whole time to try to control life and try to control the people around us, right? Each of us deserves peace. And I don't think the ego is going to let us experience that. It's going to judge and it's going to distrust either yourself or others. And I really, really am passionate about helping each and every person that's interested to discern their ego and flush out its tendencies to cause suffering. Our souls are not corrupted. They really should be the first thing we trust rather than the corrupted egos and the egos that are around us. But society talks us out of this, and we can learn to re-trust ourselves, our intuition. We can build self-love. We can, our higher self, whatever you want to call it. And our guest today, Nikki Valenti, is here to assist us in that in her own special way. And I first met Nikki because of a friend who benefits greatly and has benefited greatly from her gifts. And she has stated it as an oracle or a channeler, which again is someone who has direct access to other people's souls, which is really helpful. And, she's a healer and a life coach. I saw you went to Coach U, and
I did. I went to Coach U, and I've gone to Mind Valley. I have two coaching certifications. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went to IPEC. So yeah, we have that in common for sure. But, so anyway, thank you so much for coming and being on the podcast. And we're newbies at this, so this is fun. And we're just going to have a conversation. So just what thoughts have you had since I started blabbling?
The two things, like today I had a talk with myself about controlling my family, like controlling my conversations with my kids. Like I really want them to see me. I want them to hear me. Like this is one of my wounds in life. And it's like my ego is constantly jockeying for that position. Like when are people going to hear me? When are they going to see me? Like when I talk to my children, when are you going to validate me? Like I'm telling you the truth, how I see it. And this morning I had this conversation with myself about it. Like my kids are young adults. Like I can't.
Me too.
I can't do that anymore. I shouldn't be doing it anyway, but I can't really do it anymore. And our family has gone through, significant changes in the last 2 months. And, so this conversation I was having about drawing them closer to me and trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. So the conversation was being driven by ego, but then it turned more into if my goal is to bring them closer to me, like what would that sound like? What would that look like? How would I do it? And it really did kind of feel more like a soul-based conversation. And I don't know about you, Wynn, but I think one of the things that we could maybe talk about is like the ego, the voice of the ego and the voice of the soul. Which are constantly intermingling throughout the day, I think, and guiding and informing us. But they do have two distinct signatures, at least in my life. They do. I mean, Like
And I love that you just said that, because that is literally what this podcast is for, is to talk to people such as yourself who do that deep dive, who have gone as far as they can up into the point of this podcast, right? To say, like, I really want to know the difference. And it's not that we're going to get rid of the ego. We just want to know the difference.
right. Well, because in my life anyway, the ego sometimes is good for me. Like
Oh, absolutely.
right now I'm experiencing a level of anger, which is my ego, which is driving me to really ask some serious questions of myself, to really protect myself. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the ego is good for us. You know, it doesn't necessarily separate us. It kind of like fuels us sometimes. But for me, the ego.
Well, to your point, we are in physical bodies, and we can be victims in this world of physical violence, and that's what it's for, And we can also be isolated from love, which again is really scary. Like, that's what you're talking about, and maybe this podcast will be about two mothers, because I'm a mother of an adult child that I am currently also super concerned about from an egoic perspective. And it's like, I want to remember that I can't be separate, that I can't be separate from this person.
Right.
My ego will tell me that I'm separate and that we're suffering over that separation. But my soul is like, dude, you're not separate. There's a higher way or beauty in you that can reach the beauty in that person, even if it's happened through the persona, right? Like, even if my personality is not in touch with that person, or they're struggling and they're in their ego and they can't, we have this other side, the better side, really, the soul that knows we're not separate. And the ego will tell you that you are, and to your point, before we got on, you said, I'm noticing a 3-year-old in my neighborhood, who might be experiencing the first steps, right? And I think the ego forms when you first experience someone withdrawing love from you. So it's that first, like, oh, I ran out into the street because I was chasing a butterfly, and my parent came and shook me and said, don't ever do that again. And it was the first time I realized I was separate from my mother, that I could get in trouble, that I could, whatever that is. And it's the first time you experience that. So I'm, one of the things I like to ask people is, when do you remember first experiencing your ego, or noticing there was a second part of you or something else going on?
I think for me, I started noticing it around 6.
Okay.
6 years old, maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah. What was happening for you at that time?
Well, I have a twin sister, so I started noticing the separation between her and I. Like, we're not together. Like, we're two separate individuals. I think I started to realize it because she could tie her shoe before me. She could tell time before me. She could ride her bike before me. So it's like all of these, things that she was doing that I wasn't doing. So it was like, I feel that was my first real noticing that we're not the same.
Wow, that is so interesting. I never thought about it from the twin perspective, but that's probably a really, really obvious one, right? Because were you identical twins too?
No, we're fraternal twins. Yeah,
okay.
We're fraternal twins, but we're very different. And it was the beginning of the differences for me that started creating this idea that I'm not like her.
So interesting, right? So the ego in you, the tendency was immediately around comparison.
Yes.
And feeling, right, less than, or some level of lack, like, I should be the same as this person.
Yes.
Right. And your soul knows you're the same. The soul is like, hey, you guys are both divine beings. You have so much to, there's limitless potential. But when you're a physical body, that's where we get to play around and notice that this is happening. So, yeah.
So the other cool thing about that age for me, though, is when I also discovered that I was very gifted with my ability to tune into energy. So it's like I was separating from her, but then really noticing the differences. Like she is a more physical being. She's a more mental bodied being. I am a more spiritual being connected to something else. So the way it played out as a younger kids is more imaginary play, imaginary play with fairies and angels, and then her being hardcore into I'm going to ride my bike, I'm going to conquer this, I'm going to stand out at school, where I was very shy and needed a lot of assistance. And so even our essences are very different. I mean, so I started realizing that I had a gift, that I could hear things that other people couldn't hear. And I was connected to an energy around me. And the way that I perceived it as a younger age was I just felt very connected to God, and I felt very protected. And I never could really understand that at a young age, but I knew it was there. I've always known it was there.
So what's so interesting about what you just said is your sister would immediately begin to be recognized in our society as right, the kid who's got achievements and is figuring things out and is learning how to adapt. And then you might, on the other hand, be looked at as the kid who's not figuring it out, right?
Like
and you're not rewarded for being in touch with the soul at that level and feeling that connection and speaking about that. But she would have been recognized for what she was doing, right? Oh, you learned to ride a bike. Good for you. You did, right? It's like, so right there, you can imagine the split, but yet for whatever reason, God gave you the ability to feel so connected and keep on that path instead of thinking there was something wrong with you, which a lot of kids do, right? A lot of kids think there's something wrong with
I thought
so much, right?
Oh my gosh, I've been in 25 years of therapy trying to figure out that theme that you're talking about. I did not escape that at all.
Okay.
But I felt very divinely connected. But I never could figure out myself in society very well. I mean, there's just not a representation for it as a child. I mean, I don't even know if is still like, I don't want to label this, but if you think about sensitive children or highly sensitive children, I think they still to this day are separated by the very thing you're talking about. I mean, a sensitive child might need a little bit more time to learn a math equation, or need to actually separate themselves from people to learn a math equation. And they don't get that luxury. So they're around all these kids that are achieving and making sense of things. And they can make sense of them too, but they need a different setup or a different environment maybe to do it. So I don't think we still have a handle on highly intuitive, highly connected kids.
No, it's not celebrated.
No, it's not celebrated. It's not
even encouraged to pursue, right? It's not a pursuit that we encourage our kids to do, like go off to India and learn how to meditate when you're 10.
No. And one of the struggles I've had in my business I'm sorry, go ahead, say that, whatever you were saying.
I said you're encouraged to stay in public school and be on the soccer team, so
right. Yes.
It's confusing. Yeah.
It's funny because even to this day, I struggle with this in my business too. I mean, if I'm talking about something really esoteric, like really out there, I'll have people say, "Oh, you need to dial that down some. That's not understandable. People can't grasp that." And I always think to myself, is it that we can't grasp it, or that we literally are part of the dominant culture that tells us who we are, what we are, how much time we can give something? If I don't understand it, I'm never going to get it. If it doesn't seem like something I can read in a book, I'm not going to entertain it. Like, can we really not understand it, or are we really just all marching to the same drum of the dominant culture? Like,
Yeah.
it's really wild to me. So for me anyway, when I'm stepping out and I'm truly expanded, it's met sometimes with a lot of roadblocks. And I've experienced that since I've been 6, like the ego, like going back to the ego, like my ego developed in a way to handle being a channeler and an oracle in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Where I'm constantly fighting against the norm, whatever the norm is.
Right.
Who created the norm?
A bunch of egos. And we're all bumping into everyone else's egos, right?
I know.
So,
It's so frustrating.
I want to go back to that. Like, how did you, so you said you kind of you did such a great job of explaining it. I can visually imagine you standing next to your twin sister and being like, oh crap, and just like, she's figuring this out and I'm not, but then I have this other crazy thing that I can't explain to anybody and it's not interesting to anyone. But I guess, so how did you embrace your soul? How did you determine and define it as something, or do you call it something else, or what do you call it?
When I'm on other podcasts, I tell the audience that I was really raised by spirit.
Okay.
And the best way to be able to explain that is as if you have your own parents. Mine were just not visible, and mine were not teaching me everything that everybody else was learning. Okay. So I would go into my bedroom, for example, at night, and I would be still, and I could hear how I was to be guided, and what I was to be learning, and what I should be trying. And so I did that. I learned to really trust in that. I don't know how I trusted in that. I don't know. I didn't have anybody to ask about it. I would ask whoever was talking to me, whoever I could hear, like, what is this about? Are other people experiencing this? And I was a child at the time, so I was asking probably very innocent questions of, like innocent in the sense of, why doesn't anybody recognize me in this family? Like, why, why am I suffering in my bedroom alone? Why am I isolating myself from my own family? Those kinds of questions where I feel like if you ask those in your 20s or your 30s, then you're on a spiritual journey. Yeah. You are going deep within to access parts of yourself that you want to excavate. I want to understand this about myself. So you're on a soul journey, with yourself. So I was on a soul journey with myself as like an 8-year-old.
Yeah. So for you, it was more, I could tell there were 2 planes of existence, but I never didn't feel it. Like, it sounds like you always felt that level of connection. Yeah. Which is, again, pretty unique, probably to you, right? Like, most people don't necessarily know that. They have like an awakening, or they have a dark night of the soul or something where they're like, oh my God, there's 2 of me. Like, you always knew there was 2, but didn't. Or maybe you didn't, maybe it was a blend or something, but it sounds like you always felt it, which is some people's experience too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have a hard time describing it.
Yeah. I think that I always felt like a spiritual child, like a spiritual connection, and not so much a physical one. So I feel I was always living the counter experience as everyone else. So where I would feel separate is when I left my bedroom, when I interacted at school, or when I was interacting with environments or people that were separate, I would feel separate.
Wow.
But I was predominantly connected. So I was living like the opposite experience of everyone, I think.
Yeah, at least around you. And so you're saying that you're like the person standing on the train who it's a crowded train, but you absolutely felt separate.
Yes.
Like nobody cares about me in this place. Yeah. But then when you go into your room and quiet your mind, you felt completely connected. Wow. And so so you said spirit. Do you think of spirit like you are part of a multi?
Yes.
Or do you feel like you have your own separate sense of your essence as a soul to what I'm describing, almost like a black and a white, right? Like there's the ego and a soul, and they're me, and then there's spirit, which helps us. Or do you feel like it's just spirit? There's no separate.
I think I feel the same way I do as a child, as an adult, that I'm mostly in my spirit most of the time. Where I feel separate is when I have to confront something in the physical, when I have to, like, I'm sure we're going to talk about this. I just fell off of a mountain in Peru. So,
if you want to. It's kind of.
So when I was having that physical journey of having to like feel my broken leg, I came out of spirit, like, oh, I have to come out of this place because I have to rehabilitate my body. Like my body hurts. So that made me feel, part of humanity. And sometimes when I'm part of humanity, I feel separate because it's like, this is separation. Like when I'm living in spirit and living in that connection, I'm not separate. So it's
part of me is wondering if this is the lesson.
I don't know. Right now, I just got done telling my business partner that what I'm learning is how to connect my spirit with my physical experience. So I'm just learning that. Like I'm in midlife, and it's just now clicking in my present where, I can be my whole being all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I almost wonder if that was part of the lesson, right? Is to go, you are part of humanity.
Yes.
Right. You said, I've always felt connected to spirit, but separate from humanity. And now you're like, like you can't, well, if I'm part of humanity and they're part of humanity, we're all part of spirit too. And humanity is a physical experience of that.
Right.
And you're having the visceral experience of that also, of having to heal from a terrible accident.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. I know we're talking about the physical ego, but if I'm talking about, feeling separate from humanity, it's almost as if I developed a spiritual ego too, like, humanity, and I feel right now I am birthing myself into humanity.
Seriously, like that is so true about the spiritual ego. Like, of course you'd have one because you've had to protect your interests in that, while even just being a child. Like, it almost makes more sense that you would have had like this dual thing happening at the same time. And then I mean, we are human beings, and they're two words, but clearly soul wants us to experience them as one thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're having that experience, and it's super painful.
Yeah, it was quite the thing. I mean, I will write a book about this someday, but it's just amazing to me how spirit really does inform your physical reality, and then how you have to live in this physical reality connected to spirit. So it's like this. Do you remember when we were kids, that one thing that had the metal thing that would go up the thing and then down the other side?
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm playing that game with life right now, where, you're connected to spirit, and spirit is informing your reality, and then you're human and you're like, oh, I'm a soul having a human experience, but I'm also human having a soul experience. It's like this toy is like playing with me right now. Like,
but that was so beautiful what you just said, because they're informing each other. It's hard to believe that the human experience informs a limitless soul, but you have to have, like, it's true. Like, you don't want every power in the universe. You won't learn anything. So you almost have to have this limited experience of being a human to inform the soul of something, which is weird because I always think the soul is smarter, but it is clearly trying to have an experience as a human to learn, which is so interesting, right? And gosh, I wanted to say more about that, but I guess a lot of, I guess what I want to like just squeeze out of that is your humanness and your soul, your beingness. And then I call the ego the monkey in the middle of that, right? So the thing that's throwing the wrench in it, right? And so if humans aren't really lacking, if they are complete creatures of God, right? And they are informed by the soul, right? So neither one is better or worse than the other, right? If we try to take the judgment out of it, there's still a tendency for us to suffer unnecessarily more than we have to. And that's the tendency I want to flesh out. If you can flesh that out now, out of what everything going on in your life, right? I think, what would that be?
Well, I think it comes down to a fundamental belief in the universe. Like, if you believed in the universe and that the universe was guiding you on a human level, and then that human journey should not be, judged, dismissed, or invalidated because you believe in the universe.
Yeah.
I struggle with that. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm very attached to the universe. I love the universe, but if I could protect my kids, I would do it. So therefore, I'm not believing in the universe.
Right.
So fundamentally, it comes down to that. Like, do you believe in the universe? Do you believe the universe is guiding your journey, guiding your soul, giving you lessons? And I just fell off a mountain in Peru and I was very upset with spirit. I'm still upset with spirit.
I don't think so.
I am like, what the shit? What? Like, here I am, a devout follower. I believe in you. I listen. Why?
Yeah.
Why? But that why is like me not believing in the universe.
Right.
Like, it's, why is not the question, like, why is not the question?
It's not the best question to ask.
It's not the best question.
Yeah. And so what do you think is a better question?
Maybe, I don't even say, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because that also creates an edge in me, like a little bit of an edge.
Yeah.
How does this expand me?
As a human? Yeah. And so if we're all literally connected and other people, humans, are learning from your humanity, right? Because everyone learns from all your clients learn from your soul. You're an oracle, you're a channeler, but it's like, maybe you need to find out that they can learn from you just simply because you're a human.
Yeah. Which is wild to me. I'm saying to you, like, this is the beauty of the universe, right? Like, I'm on this podcast. It's, distinguishing ego from soul. I'm literally admitting to you that today's the first day that I'm like, wait, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not separate from everybody else. I'm part of this.
You are.
And
And
so,
that means we are vulnerable to falling off mountains.
right,
Children who are suffering and pulling away, like we're vulnerable to it all. And I think
right.
you and I are both fleshing out our spiritual egos a little bit, you
I
know.
think so. I know I am. I know I
Right.
am. And I'm grateful for that because I don't, gosh, I mean, one of the reasons I fell off the mountain was to be more, what's the word I'm trying to use? With humanity. I'm supposed to guide humanity now. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
one of the lessons, like one of the reasons I fell was to be able to connect to humanity more
Yeah.
than I do now, to be able to serve and give. And yeah, I don't want to give from that place. I don't want that to be the signature that people hear from me,
Yeah.
because that's separation.
You know, I've heard this, the saying, and I don't know who said it, but they said, you know, you don't give a Bible to someone who's suffering, you know, from starvation, right? You give them food, right? And
Mhm.
that's a very human thing to do, but it is still the most unconditionally loving thing you can do, you know. And I think that kind of maybe the summarization of what I'm hearing from our discussion is something along those lines. Is like it was your time to learn, like, what do I just do as a human
Yes.
on this planet? And sometimes it's handing somebody an extra cup of coffee, or checking in with them about this, or, you know, understanding that we're all going to have physical ailments and we're going to die, you know, all those human things that, we're really meant to experience, that those of us who focus so much on our soul development forget, that we should be connecting with people on the human level
Yeah,
even more so than, what we thought,
I know. I
you
mean,
know.
I've seen a whole different side to humanity. I mean,
Yeah.
since I've fallen, I mean, just how giving people are and how loving they are and supportive
Well,
and,
people carried
you
you,
know
right?
what?
Didn't somebody carry you? Or yeah, and they didn't need a soul to do that, right? They just needed to feel
Well,
connected to your human body.
I had a person jump down 10 feet to grab me. I'm like, I don't even know how that person got down there. And his partner came over a couple weeks ago and I asked her, I'm like, does he know how he got down there? She's like, no. I go, I don't know how he got down there. But I mean, there was just so many giving people in that experience. Like for example, the taxi driver who drove me down the mountain, I was 5.5 hours from where I was staying.
My God.
He fell off a mountain too, and he broke his tibia as well. And so
No way.
he had his taxi, like the back seat, it was like a bed. He made a bed for me. He like put all these bumpers in there so my leg wouldn't get hurt. If he went over a bump, he'd be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, it was just like the sweetest journey down the mountain, but it was because we had a shared experience, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I could tell you so many of those stories, like,
Yeah.
from this experience.
But
And
what you're saying is the shared humanness.
yes, the shared humanness. Yes.
Yeah, which was like what you said, like I've often felt apart from
I felt
humanity.
very
Yeah, and our souls literally saying, like, no, we want you to feel
mhm.
and act like a human. And, you
Yeah.
know, that's why you're in this body.
I
Um,
know, it's wild because before I fell off the mountain, I was with a bunch of shamans and I was being seen for who I was in Peru. Like, you're very connected, you're a medicine
mm,
woman, like I mean, it was like I was glowing, you know, like, oh
wow.
my God, I'm finally being seen. Like somebody. So I was having like a dual experience. I was having my spiritual life and who I am validated, and then falling and having my human experience
Yeah.
validated. So it was
Wow.
like I'm saying to you, when I'm having a merge, like
Yes.
a spiritual Nikki and physical Nikki are merging together.
Yes. And what we want to be most observant of then is the monkey in the middle, the ego, which either will tell people like you and I, like, oh, the ego don't, or the human, don't worry about it. Or other people are like, soul, don't worry about it. It's fake. Throw it out with religion. And, we're trying to do in this podcast is put the two together and see where the ego just messes with us along that path you were talking about, right? When we're bouncing back and forth between the two states, don't let the ego get you stuck in either state, right? Either this like 5-day long, retreat of soul, or 5-day long of going down the rabbit hole of the ego that wants to, limit you, but have some symbiosis or symbiotic or synthesis or whatever that word is. And yeah, that's not what I thought we were going to talk about today. So it was fun. It was fun.
I remember calling you when I was like, I don't even know, maybe week 4, week 3. I was like devastated for, reasons for falling off, but also other reasons. And I remember you saying that, like, something about owning my victim in the journey or something. And I was like, ugh, I am not ready to hear that. Like, I am not going to look at that right now. But I did really look at it. I mean, I heard your question, and I've been processing through it a lot. And it's had a lot of different legs for me,
Well, and you said you were looking for a therapist, right, to process the trauma. And I thought, how can someone who's connected to the universe need that? But again, what we're talking about today is really so important, because it's like all of us, I mean, I shattered my leg too, and I remember asking that. I was like, what? Why would you teach me? But it's really just like, no, we actually want you to be a human. Like, we actually want you to have the human experience and feel connected to other humans to humans.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're off in the clouds all the time, and not, if we have to, assist you with, needing help, physical help or whatever. And then knowing that there's a place for everyone, because a therapist who maybe isn't in touch with the spiritual side of a person still can help you process the human trauma that you experienced.
Yeah.
And that also makes me feel more connected to everybody has a purpose and everybody's here for a reason.
Totally. 100%.
We're all in awe of your amazing ability, but it doesn't make you a better, version of a human. Right.
No, because I feel like this is a mind-blowing thing I'm going to say. Maybe some people won't think that, but when you're an oracle, you're channeling information from source to the collective or to the person.
Yeah.
But you are not I am not the oracle. Like, I am a vessel for information that's funneling through me. Every time I do a session for somebody, or anytime I'm channeling for the collective, I am actually learning and having to do the things that are coming through, because I am not the oracle. Like, this is a blueprint that I was given, just like the blueprint of a musician, like a musician who can like play the cello when they're 4, like it's the same thing. I was given a blueprint, a design, but that's not me. I mean, I'm still me. Like, I'm still struggling over here. I'm still trying to decipher information. I'm still, like, anything that I teach, I have to learn too. I have to go through the learning. So it's like, I think if you have the blueprint of Oracle, you probably know what I'm saying. It's a little bit like maddening. Like, who wants that vehicle? I mean,
almost like you could be like, my sister might have had a little bit easier time in her life. Yeah.
Actually, when I'm with my sister's spent a lot of time with me since I've been injured, and we talk about that. She's having a much easier time at life. She's just living life. She's just waking up and doing her life.
How interesting that your sister, whose essence is more about the physical, right, was the one who nursed you through your human physical.
She most definitely did.
Yeah. And again, that's why we need them. That's why we need everybody, because some of us are channeling and some of us are taking care of broken bones. And,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Thank you so much for this talk. It's not where I thought it was going to go. And I so appreciated like having this discussion with you, because again, my own ego would put you on a pedestal, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it
Take
shouldn't.
me off there.
It's getting in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Take me off there. I'm fumbling around just like the rest of us, like just, growing and learning and loving and being heartbroken. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've been heartbroken since April, just devastated. I mean, yeah. And no conversation with God has helped me yet.
Yeah. Wow.
Not yet.
What is helping?
So I started doing Qigong in the morning, and even though I know this to bring light into my being, and that's what I do when I channel, I access light, but for some reason my human Nikki is like, oh, I don't do that for myself. I do it for other people. So I don't,
Yeah.
I started doing Qigong to remember that I can access light too, and I can bring it into my physical being.
Yeah. It sounds like a grounding technique.
It's grounding.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also reminding me that when I'm suffering as deeply as I have since April, that I can bring light into those places. And I don't necessarily have to hear I don't have to hear anything. I can just bring in the light. I can just feel that, and I can feel supported, not as Nikki the channeler, like who can listen to things and speak the word, speak God's essence to people, but feel it, feel it.
Which is what the human body's for.
Yeah.
Is to experience emotion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think you should have me back on and we should talk about disassociating, because sometimes I think, oh gosh, like as being a sensitive child, and it's possible that this whole disconnection is really about, disassociating and not understanding the physical. Like,
so part two will be
part two. I think it should be about that. Like, what is
Soulganize your disassociation, right? Because that's something that a lot of us do, for sure.
And understanding the physical. Well, I don't know if you can understand it, but like knowing that you're physical.
Yeah. Well, all right. So audience, part two will come.
Yeah.
At some point. But before I let you go, again, thank you so much. This is such a cool conversation. But where can people find out more about you if they are interested in your gift of Oracle and healing and coaching? And
okay. I have a website. It's justnikki.net. Let me make sure there's not a V on that, because sometimes I put a V on it. Hold on.
.net. Okay.
Welcome to me.
Justnikki.net. Okay.
Oh, did you look it up?
No, I just wrote it down.
So okay, hold on.
Notes.
Just.
You're so funny. You don't even
know. No, I know, because this ask me in a month when I'm super physical. Yeah, it's justnikki.net. Okay. And then Instagram is just Nikki V.
Just Nikki V. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, and I also have a workshop coming up next week on time.
Well, this probably won't be out by the time your workshop happens, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I'm going to send it to you. It's a whole workshop on like really understanding what time is and how we can access more of it, in our everyday lives, but also how we can even think about time. Like sometimes people are really like in a grief place about time. Like time is wasting.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
I don't know what to do with this time. You know, like,
yes. I
so
hear
we're
that
going to
from clients all the time.
talk about time.
Well, it's good to know that you also do workshops, because if they go, and there might be other ones on there. So,
Oh yes, I'll be doing workshops, a lot more workshops. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You.
And I mean, I don't know what else to say. I wait for part 2.
Yeah. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Well, thank you.